Well, we're here to talk a little bit of nine-man football in South Dakota. And, of course, we've got three different classes. We've got 9AA, the biggest class, which this season, it looks like 9AA has more contenders. The last couple of seasons, you haven't necessarily found the best teams in nine-man football. What do you make of 9AA?
You know, there are a ton of teams, and I agree with you. It's so unique that in South Dakota, and the same discussion was held, several years ago when we went to three classes, that size matters when it comes to schools. Well, now, over the course of the years, we have seen that isn't necessarily the case. We had, a couple years ago, we had the 9B champ that had beaten the 9A and the 9AA. In nine-man football, if indeed numbers matter that much, then why is it that in 11-man football, we don't have all three classes playing each other? Because it happens all the time in 9-man. 9B, 9A, 9AA, they're in the same conference, for crying out loud.
Schools 2 and almost 3 times as big.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And so consequently, why don't we have Tri-Valley playing Sioux Falls, Washington? That everyone would think that was outrageous. Well, in the 9-man ranks, it doesn't really matter. And I would just soon see us go to a couple of 9-man classes and go to a 6-man class. I would have no problem with that. You see what Marion is doing this year with 13 kids on their team. Del St. Mary's is winning games. They basically have about 11 kids that play. This year is actually unique because, as you said, in 9AA, that's where, with the exception of Canastota, that's where the best teams are. And I think that's going to be wide open for the 9AA and the most entertaining, and I do not worry about 9AA having a blowout once you get to the Dome. I think whoever works their way through 9AA this year will have earned it.
Yeah, you could see a team like Howard, for instance, has already taken 2 losses this year. Mm-hmm. They could make their way to the Dome. Gregory got a little setback early in the season, losing to Kimball White Lake. I wouldn't be surprised to see them make it. And then, of course, you got Kimball White Lake, who's beaten all comers this year.
Right.
And they've been there last year. Maybe they learned a little bit, and they can turn it around and take it this year.
And I agree with you, too. And it's so nice to see some of those programs. And really, Gregory is a program. They don't have a bunch of state titles to show for it. I think they've only got one with Aaron Beavers. But they're always in the hunt, and it's nice to see them making that comeback. Kimball White Lake, we knew they were going to be very, very solid this year, and they are certainly showing it again. I really think 9AA is probably going to be the most entertaining and, although you are the guy who makes those picks, probably the most unpredictable of the playoffs.
I think it's the most unpredictable too. You can't overlook what Jeff Van Leur's done with Bridgewater Emery Ethan over the last couple of years. They played a really close game against Kimball White Lake. Who's to say that it doesn't turn around the next way the next time?
Exactly.
Yeah, 9AA, I agree. That'll be the most fun. Now in 9A, a little bit different story. It looks like Canastota will carry that winning streak into the Dome once again. The key is not to play Canastota on the way to the Dome, I think, to get there. You agree with that?
Depends on if you want to be humbled on statewide television or not. I guess that's part of the difference. I remember there was a quote from Graham Nash from Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and he basically said when you were talking 1960s music, you were talking Jimi Hendrix, Bob Dylan, and then who the heck cares? And right now, I think in 9A football, you're talking Canastota, and then who the heck cares? I just think they are on such a run right now, and I don't see a team that is. They got challenged, and that was good for them on a couple of games this year, and they were able to pull those out. But I just don't see any way that Canastota doesn't win their third straight title.
Yeah, well, we've got Harriet Selby's undefeated, who took out a good Potter County team. Mm-hmm. We've got Hamlin, who's quietly gone undefeated this year. Arlington, up into the last game, playing against Dubrook. Both those teams are undefeated, so Arlington's right in there. And then you've got the quiet team, Warner, Jared Tuska, the future NDSU Bison. He's got a little bit of everything. It'd be fun to watch him make it to the Dome so the rest of the state can see what he can do.
And that is the good news. We have the opportunity to showcase some of these kids who we don't get a chance to see on a regular basis. And yeah, I think Warner has played had a heck of a season. I know the strength of that conference up in their part of the world, though. My nephew plays up there at Northwestern, and I know that this is not the best year for that particular conference, and so consequently, I'm not sure they've been tested quite enough. But we'll see what happens with that.
We'll see. Now we move on to 9B, another class that's a little bit in flux. You've got Harding County, who's gone through the season undefeated, and they're similar to Warner or a team like that where they don't see the same type of competition. And then you've got, like a Viborg Hurley all year was number one in that category until they've gotten knocked off recently by Hansen and by Canastota. So
Right.
a little bit to worry about there. What do you make of 9B, Mike?
I think that this may be as from top to bottom as weak as we have seen 9B in a long time. You talked about Viborg Hurley, and they clearly appeared to be the class of it. There are some folks, and I haven't had a chance to see them. There are some folks that have told me they just aren't physical enough. Hansen, jumps up and gets them. And oh, by the way, Jim Haskamp can coach a little bit over at Hansen. But I think that 9B, this might be the year that we get a Hardin County that gets another title because of the fact, in general. I mean, you've been doing the power rankings. You're putting teams in your top 5 or whatever for 9B that are 3-3 at the time, or whatever the case may be. And so I don't think there's a clear favorite. I think it should be entertaining. And remember, just because the overall quality is down doesn't mean we won't see some great matchups in that. You will actually see better matchups because of the fact there is no dominant team there.
I have to agree with you there. And then you've got Hardin County, like you said, they've got Jess Feist, a quarterback who loves to chuck the ball around the field. And that's always fun to watch. I like to watch the entertaining games in the Dome, so I'm kind of rooting for Hardin County to make it. And I think Viborg Hurley could regroup and make a run.
I do too. And I will tell you, though, if you've never had the opportunity, I would encourage you to do so. Go stand on the football field at Hardin County. There is no windier place, certainly in South Dakota, and perhaps in the upper Midwest, than the football field at Hardin County. It sits on a little hill. They love their program out there. They've had some great teams, some great players. It gets a little breezy. They're going to have to be able to run the ball, though, too. They can't rely on him chucking it around.
It's a fairly hard surface, too.
It is a fairly hard surface is a good way to put that, yeah. But again, it's great to see a community like that because year in and year out, they're in the hunt. And I mean, those people travel hundreds of miles during the football season just to watch your boys go play.
Well, in a wide open field as it could be, I'd be remiss not to mention at least that Colombe and Hitchcock-Tulare could be teams that make a run as well in 9B.
Very much so, and it's nice to see Colombe, having some success again because they tend to be up and down based on their numbers, but certainly those guys love their football as well. Hitchcock-Tulare has come around and is improving as the season goes along, which you knew they would. They've got a good coach. And so, yeah, I think it'll be nice and balanced. Right now, it's kind of like 11B. You could probably tell me about 8 or 10 teams in 9B that are going to be in the Dome, and I couldn't argue against you.
Well, thanks for your analysis today, Mike, and thanks for joining us on MidcoastSports.com. Check in later the rest of the season for more updates. Thanks.